Hello everyone, welcome to the Reimu and Cirno subscriber special. You had questions, I have answers. Let's get started. So what's my favorite Toho game? Which was my first? Well, I can't answer that because I haven't played any Toho games. And if I haven't played any Toho games, then I guess the next question would be, how did I get into Toho? I found out about Toho the way most people do, through its fan works. In this case, fan-made videos. I think my very first exposure to Toho was this video here. After seeing more and more Toho-related works, I slowly fell in love with the fandom. I think Toho has the best fans of any piece of entertainment ever. It was only a matter of time before I stumbled across some Walfus videos. So what got me into making Walfus videos? The short answer is other Walfusers. Seeing what other fans had made with free access software made me want to give it a go. I was eager to try it out and tell some stories, but it didn't go well. In fact, I had such a bad experience with create.swf, I decided to quit before I even finished my first video. But I had some stories that were gnawing at me and eventually reconsidered. When I restarted making videos, I was better prepared and came with tactics to counter the problem I faced earlier. So, why don't any of my videos have any dialogue? Well, I don't really know why. I know this kind of sounds strange, but I can't really remember making a conscious decision to make videos this way. I think when I was making videos at first, I might have just, made some empty speech bubbles as placeholders, maybe with some props in them. And then the plan was to go back and add words later. I guess it worked well enough that I didn't really need to add words. I actually recommend that people try this out. The style has forced me to become a better Walfuser. I think it makes someone be more creative. Why did I settle on the name Reimu and Cirno? Originally, I did this channel as a central hub for Reimu and Cirno related works, eventually growing where other people would contribute videos. My other videos were just kind of to get that ball rolling for that, but it didn't really pan out. However, that begs the question, why do I portray Reimu and Cirno the way I do? And you know what? I agree. In canon, I don't ever see these two becoming friends. But I don't think their personalities would have to change too much for it to happen either. Reimu's sort of a jerk, sure, but some of that might be explained by constantly having to face down new threats. She might genuinely be sick of it. She might be tired of everyone seeing her as a challenge. Maybe some of her attitude can be explained by just being wary. Cirno, on the other hand, if she weren't so self-absorbed, would probably be drawn to talented people. She might even have seen Reimu in battle and thought it was the coolest thing ever. She would be thrilled if she could be Reimu's friend. Reimu, for her part, might be surprised that she has a cute little admirer. She might immediately latch on to someone who looks up to her and wants to be her friend instead of a rival. And I'm not the only person who pairs up these two. According to this website, Reimu is the most common character that gets paired with Cirno. Lots of people like seeing them together. When it comes to fanfiction, I see canon as a starting point. You should be free to wander from there as you need in order to best serve the story. I sometimes get criticized for not following canon, which I freely admit to. My videos aren't canon. Any work of fanfiction is inherently non-canon. That means that characters who aren't friends in canon may be friends in one of my videos, and perhaps characters who know each other in canon might not know each other in one of my videos. There's a lot of inconsistencies with canon people can call me out on, but I think it's kind of interesting where they focus their criticism. I suspect they don't have a problem with me deviating from canon per se, but rather I'm deviating from the part of canon they like. It's something special for them, and they don't like seeing it tampered with, and I don't blame them for that. In fact, I would suggest that they make their own work of fanfiction. They can have fun with the freedom it offers while holding on to the parts of canon they consider dear. So, where do my ideas come from? What's my inspiration? Well, I don't know where my ideas come from. I suppose I see an image or a scene in my mind and I try to form something around that. As for my inspiration, I think I've been most influenced by the old cartoons I used to watch as a kid. Some of those have really stuck with me. And there's this webcomic I used to read called Count Your Sheep. I'm not sure it's a source of inspiration, but it did get me to start thinking about these things. I think it's been discontinued, but there's a link in the description if you'd like to go through the archives. I highly recommend it. And while we're on the topic of comics, what's my favorite Toho manga? Well, that's easy. It's Have I Read Reimu and Cirno's 123? Yes, that's the manga that What's my favorite part of Reimu and Cirno's 123? Wait, hold on, let's back up for a minute. For those who don't know, Cirno Reimu's 123 is a fan-made manga that centers around a relationship between Reimu and Cirno. I found it after I started making my videos, and I'm glad I did. The manga is Yuri, but it focuses more on the relationship between the characters rather than lust. There's a link in the description if you'd like to go read it. As for my favorite part, I think it happens in the very first volume. There's spoilers here, so I recommend reading the comic first, at least the first volume. I won't spoil anything after that. So Cirno hatches a plan to be sick. In fact, she's dying. She hopes to lure Reimu into lowering her guard so she can deliver a quick defeat. However, when Reimu is told that Cirno is dying, she absolutely breaks down in tears. Cirno, who's listening the whole time, feels terrible and tries to confess her plan. Unfortunately, I think a lot of it's ruined by what follows. After learning Cirno's scheme, Reimu just kind of brushes it off like it's no big deal. She's actually more bothered by the fact that she kissed Cirno. If it were me, I think I'd be pretty hurt. Someone I cared about so much would do something so cruel. I think it'd be awful. The manga as a whole is really good though, and there were a lot of ideas explored throughout. Hope you check it out. So a lot of people ask me who my favorite character is, or some variation of that question. I think some just assumed it was either Reimu and Cirno. I don't really have a favorite character. Sure, I suppose there are some I like more than others, but it would be hard for me to narrow it down to even my top 10. Lots of people have characters they like the most, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I try to avoid inane arguments like which one's the most powerful or which one's the cutest, which is ridiculous because Cirno's the cutest. What's my favorite Toho song? I don't like much in-game Toho music, but that's probably because how the sound's produced. When I hear it done on proper instruments, I think it's awesome. There are two in-game songs that I do like. One is Mei Ling's theme, Shanghai Alice of Meiji, and Yu Yuko's theme, Ultimate Truth. What's my favorite food? Cheese. Have I thought about writing a fanfic about one of my videos? You know, I did write a Toho fanfic, but yeah, it has nothing to do with these videos. The answer to that question is probably not. When I imagine these stories, I imagine telling them visually. I like using videos as storytelling format, despite its difficulties. I'm actually more inclined to write fanfics based on other people's fan works, rather than one of my own. Sometimes I see a fascinating idea, but I just don't like how it's explored. I'd rather do my own take on it. But I don't have any plans to write fanfics at the moment. How do I move my arms around if they're the same color and pattern? Well, all the arms are either stock props already in create.swf, or they're custom props that are imported. The pattern doesn't really have anything to do with it. I make most of my own custom prop arms, but there's a wallster called Shinkong that already make a bunch of these custom arm props for nearly all the characters. You can go to the link in the description. While we're on this topic of custom props, I'd like to show you something I did in one of my videos titled Company. It's how you can make it look like Yukari is coming through her gap rather than from behind. Here's what you'll need. You'll need create.swf, GIMP, which is a free to download software similar to Photoshop. I suppose if you already have Photoshop, you can just use that. And finally, Microsoft Paint, or again, a similar piece of software. Let's say you want to create a scene where Yukari is jumping out of her gap to surprise Reimu. You'll need to set up the scene first in create.swf. When everything's in place, take a look at what's on the opposite side of the gap. If there's anything that a character will move or interact with, then you need to move it somewhere else. So suppose I'm going to have Reimu walk behind this table later on. I'm going to, right now, just move it out of the way, and then later on I'll put it back. Once that's done, take a screenshot and paste it into Paint. You want to crop the image so that the edges of the gap have a fair enough space behind it. Now everything for the gap will need to be one solid color, and it will need to be a color that's not found anywhere else in the image. And it just so happens that purple here works. So I'll use the color select tool to help make the rest of the gap that same color. Properly adjusting the edges of the gap may take some patience. Once that's done, import the image into GIMP, and then use the color selection tool there to choose a color you chose earlier. Then go to Layers, select Transparency, then click on Add Alpha Channel, then hit Delete. What that did was turn our selected color transparent. Now you can export the image somewhere where you can retrieve it later. Go back to create.swf and import the prop you just made. Here's where you have to be very careful. You need to precisely move the prop to the exact spot where it overlaps everything behind it. Once you do that, press P to lock it into place and save the scene. Now move Yukari over the prop and layer her behind it. Quick way to do this is hold down the shift key and tap the down arrow until it happens. And then presto, it looks like Yukari is coming through the gap. What's really happening is that she's behind this custom prop we just made, but the prop is essentially invisible because it blends into everything behind it. One last thing to note about the prop is that it's still a rectangle. The bit at the corner may be transparent, but as far as create.swf is concerned, it's still there. So it may look like you're clicking on Yukari, but you're really clicking on the prop. If you're having trouble selecting Yukari, just layer the prop behind her, move Yukari where you want her, and then layer her back behind the prop. Now, some people have asked me how much time I spend making videos and wondering why it takes so long. And believe me, I get it. I know what it looks like from the outside. There's a huge gap between videos, and it's only natural to wonder why it takes so long. I have a full-time job, and working on office videos is what I do on my spare time. Another thing to keep in mind is I don't have any formal training in well, any of this. I'm still trying to figure this stuff out. Directing, animating, making art, everything I know has been the result of independent research or trial and error. Trying to make things work eats up a lot of time. Some shots take a lot of planning. It takes some effort to go from this to this. And because of the way create.swf works, it takes a lot of effort to do the simplest things. A new shot can take days to create. Something that appears rather ordinary on screen requires a lot of work. So much of this requires custom props. Making custom props is a huge time sink. I spent hours making custom props that only appear on screen for a few seconds. If an object is shown from different angles, that's an entirely new custom prop every single time. If I show a room from a different angle, that's also a new custom prop. And there's a lot of props you probably don't even notice, which is the point. Kind of like the prop I showed you earlier with Hikari's gap. And then there are things like editing, trying to track down music and sound effects, and just making everything work. Making videos is a continuous effort for me. I hope no one thinks I just take a long break before I get in the mood to knock one out. I like trying to get things right before I upload a video. My goal is to offer something unique, something you can't find everywhere else in the Waffles community. That should be the goal of every Waffleser. I think this question is kind of interesting. Am I having fun? Are my videos like children? Do I see any truth in them? Am I glad to know that other people enjoy my videos? To answer that last part first, absolutely. It's deeply rewarding to know that other people like what I've made, and I love reading all the comments, even the ones that point out how something's not canon. But I don't anthropomorphize my videos either. They aren't my kids, and I don't think they hold any more meaning than what they say on the surface. There are definitely parts of my video that I enjoy. I mostly like imagining how to set up shots and how scenes should go. The worst part is actually making that happen. Animating and making custom props is a chore, but I think it's worth it in order to tell stories this way. Do I have any videos or projects lined up for the future? Yes, absolutely. I definitely have more stories I want to tell, and at some point I'd like to make a Waffles tutorial video. How did Reimu and Cirno meet? That's something I plan to show in a future video. Will Cota be in one of my future videos? I think what prompted this question is that I made a comic featuring Cota. That was intended as a one-off sort of thing, not related to the continuity of the videos. The answer to your question is probably not. The idea for that comic is just too short for a video, and I don't really see room in the Reimu and Cirno series to fit her in as a character. But maybe I'll make another comic about her someday. Will the rest of Team 9 be in one of my videos at some point? Yes, keep watching this one. Alright, one more question. Who are my favorite Wafflesers who aren't well known? Well, how about I tell you about all my favorite Wafflesers? Spasik is one of the most popular Wafflesers around, and for good reason. He's made an enormous effort to make the Waffles community better. He's big on self-help, and I think his advice has improved a lot of people. He's well known for his focus on developing stories, but one talent I don't think people really mention is that he's a great director. Take a look at his groundbreaking Diamond in the Rough series. Some of those battle scenes are spectacular. Steve-O the Human was one of the very first Wafflesers I ever came across. His video called Reimu Fights the Bad Guys of the Darkness is legendary. If you haven't seen it yet, go do so. Like This Really Matters produces some interesting videos. Most of them are unrelated to one another, but he did make a series called Super Marisa RPG. If you really want to see the range of what you can do with create.swf, his channel is the place to go. Siege is somewhat new to the community, but his videos are absolutely amazing. He's one of the best frame-by-frame animators of any Waffleser. He actually has some formal training in animation, and it shows. Each time I rewatch one of his videos, I always catch something I didn't see before. If Siege is the best frame-by-frame animator, then Castletoast is the best non-frame-by-frame animator. His stuff looks awesome, and I think he has the best Waffles music videos around. His Waffles version of the Code Mint series is definitely worth checking out. Mini Witch has one of the longest-running Waffles series out there, if not the longest. His Wiccan and Sword Girl series features some of the best storytelling of any Waffleser series ever. Brian is one of my favorite all-time Wafflesers, and I think he has one of the funniest videos of any Waffleser, hands down. Unfortunately, he doesn't seem to be making Waffles videos anymore, but I highly recommend his channel. Japheth Mario 21st produces some great stuff. He also happens to feature some characters from other fandoms. Check out his channel and take a look at his DeviantArt account. 963 Delta focuses on making short, fast flash animations. It's really some impressive stuff. Most of it's located on his DeviantArt account. White Ton has some gorgeously animated videos you should check out. His frame-by-frame animation is on par with Siege. Bonsai Blitz makes short, fast-paced videos that seem to start out slow. There's a build-up and payoff that play out well with above-average animation. And of course, this isn't everyone. There's plenty of other Wafflesers that I haven't mentioned, like Cody Venus, Evil Nazgul, Usagi no ID, Shiny Raichu, Full Hit Points, Shadow Kitsune, and plenty of others. And not to mention the enormous Spanish-speaking Waffles community. There's probably more, and I hope to find them. I'm always on the lookout for new Wafflesers. Now, with all the questions out of the way, here's an animation I made just for you guys. It's not part of the Reimu and Cirno canon, so instead think of it as more of its own thing. It's my thanks to all of you who decided to watch my videos and subscribe to my channel. Hope you enjoy it.